Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest, Connie Osterholt. Connie has been leveraging over 25 years working directly with women business leaders in 17 countries. She has synthesized her experience as a senior executive, a strategy coach, and mentor to high net worth businesswomen in 10 plus industries, public, private board members, and successful entrepreneurs. She has been successfully focused on the power of the feminine and masculine energy in negotiations, networks, and the nuanced areas of business and leadership. Knowing how and where to find what's really going on and help them going to the core of what's holding them back, and in easy ways to turn it around. All right, welcome to the show, Connie.
Thank you. Happy to be here. It took a while, but here we are. That's awesome.
Yes, and this show actually showed up based on my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And now over the last 13 or so months, we have globally experienced unimaginable situations. So I like to start off each show by asking if you have a time that you could share about to the audience in your business or personal life where you experienced a tough situation and how you got back on track.
I can name several, but let me start with the one that it is quite a while ago, but it's one of the toughest. And I know many people can relate, Sheila, and that was when my baby daughter, when she was about to be born, there were a couple of doctors present, gynecologists, and they made one wrong decision after another. I mean, in the moment they thought they were doing good, but in hindsight, it was one wrong decision after the other, which ended in the fact that my daughter although she was a healthy baby, only lived for a couple of hours. Oh. So that was tough. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a long time ago, so I can talk about it, right? It wasn't easy for a while because I was always crying, but it's a long time ago. And I think that on my own, I might have never gotten over it, really. I mean, with time, it gets a little bit dimmer and it gets more manageable. But what I really, and it took me a while to get there, because you go through all the stages, right, of grief. You know that. You're angry, you're in denial, right? You're bargaining and all of that. And then there's finally acceptance. And there were two things that really, really were hard for me. One, of course, was not having my daughter with me on this earth, but also how people reacted to it. Mm-hmm. And the best reaction was, well, you're young, you get another baby. Wow. And it's horrible, right? Because, this daughter of mine was not there. And then there was a whole way of people crossing the street when they saw me coming, and so-called friends not even reacting, right? So that was hard at the time. Since then, I learned that people really don't know how to deal with grief. They don't know. So they kind of stuck and they avoid you or don't say anything or say the wrong thing. And, they really don't know. And it took me quite a while to find ways of making sense to all of this. Mm-hmm. And actually, it was through personal development that I discovered that it was not my fault. because that's the first one you go to, right? The if only game, if only I would have, right? And that would never work, of course. But that I wasn't to blame. That was one thing. And that I didn't need to suffer, and that I could be myself. Because what do you do when your child dies is you put them a brave mask. Society, 6 weeks, that's about it. You can mourn for 6 weeks and then get on with it. They don't say it like that, but that was the general feeling, right? So you put on a mask and a mask and a mask. I'm good. I'm doing good. So it's discovery that I'm not guilty, that I can live myself, that I can make sense of it, and most important, that I can choose my emotions. Yeah. So it's not that I put my emotions aside and say, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. I don't care what happened. Of course not. Right. I mean, it hurts. It hurts deeply. Right. But to know that I too can have a normal life and I don't have to constantly live in the past. And I now know, and it sounds a little bit esoteric, I know that my daughter's energy is still around me. And there was a purpose to it. And I didn't want to acknowledge that for a long time. Mm-hmm. But my point is that, and that is linking into your show, I think, is that you can choose your emotions. Yes. And we have all the emotions in the world, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we will experience all of them. But we can choose to spend very little time in the emotions that don't work for you. Mm-hmm. Spend the most time in the emotions that would serve you, that help you make your life more happy, fulfilled, make your business more good. And I think that's the core of it. In business, in times like we had last year, it was tough for many, many people, many different fronts, to choose your emotions. It's okay to have, when something small happens, it's okay to be, whatever, peeved for 5 minutes, right? When something more serious happens, of course, you take more time. But make sure that you live your life as happy and fulfilled and successful as possible. And that goes hand in hand with the emotional state you live in.
That's beautiful. And that's so true. And I have interviewed many people who have lost a child. And I also lost my youngest son, Michael, who had a heart condition. So we actually almost lost him in 5th grade. And then we got to keep him extra years, and he passed away last year at 22. Yeah. And we, as a family, oh my gosh, I had to model, how do we express our emotions without letting the emotions take over every part of our life? Yeah. And we did all the counseling and worked and discussions. And it was, thank goodness for so much personal development training. Like, my son was my daughter's best friend. She did the training with Chloe Madonis, the mentorship program that Chloe had. My daughter and I went together, and she's studying psychology. So we had some discussions, psychological. It would be 3:00 in the morning. Mom, I can't sleep. Let's talk all night. And what we did. And there were those friends and people, for her and for myself and for my other kids, that were not understanding or didn't know what to do or what to say, or showed up in a weird way that felt different. And we had a lot of talks about that. Because if they haven't walked or they haven't experienced that, they can't even fathom it, then it's hard for them to know, what do you say or do, or how do you feel? And so it's not a personal thing. Yeah. And the more we can talk about going through these things openly, the easier it is for other people. And this last year, I think we've all had grief in so many ways. Grief at the way the world was, the way the world is, maybe changing jobs, or some people got divorced, some people got married.
Exactly. Yeah. So some people had the best time in their life, and others were really deeply struggling.
Right. And so to be able to realize what matters most, I think that's what this universal pause really taught my family. And I was just, does it matter? What really matters? Love, family, friends, community. Yeah. We can always do something else for work. It's all good. But what really matters is those things. If you don't have those, what are you working for? If you're not working to serve the community, and you can serve in any way, then it doesn't really matter. So
absolutely. Yeah. It makes me think of, if I may, it makes me think of, like, I had many years, no, not that long ago, but 10 years ago, a monk in my house, or
Mm.
like an Indian, like, movement that promoted oneness. Everybody is the same. Underneath everything, everybody is the same. And I had some people who were not experienced in spirituality or being around monks or whatnot. And one of them said, "What is the purpose of life?" Huge question, right? And the purpose of life, he had to think about it. And then he said, the purpose of life is to be happy.
Mm.
So, and I was going, well, is that shallow? Is that superficial? No, we can really be happy, but it doesn't always come easy.
Right.
And if you sit and wait till the outside world is providing you with happiness, sometimes that works, but most of the time it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love what you said about, despite everything that people went through, and a lot was happening. It's like finding those moments, finding the people, and finding the experiences that are meaningful and fulfilling. So it makes you happy. And friends and family, yes, absolutely. Love in many, many forms. That's what it's about.
Yes. And I know that for me, I had so many people that said, okay, you'll get into a relationship and then you'll be happy. Or you'll have this house or that place or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
XYZ, and you're going to be happy. And I was like, wait a minute, I already am happy. And as I got more and more happy with my own life and where I was at and found happiness in the little things and the big things that showed up, more happy people, places, and things showed up for me. And
right.
it wasn't, my happiness isn't going to depend on those outside circumstances. Yes, you're going to grieve the loss of a loved one. Yes, you're going to go through, I mean, this is normal to go through a grieving over this last year.
Yeah,
But when you own your happiness, you're empowered. Nobody gets to be over you on that.
yeah,
Person, place, or thing, you own that.
absolutely. And when you make that your core, no matter what happens, big, small things, you will always come back to that core.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think, what's most important, because from that place, like you said too, you attract, instead of like resisting things or not recognize or acknowledge opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And in friends and love and business, it's attracting likewise, right? You're attracting happy people as well.
That's
And
exactly.
you can pick and choose. It's abundance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that is for a lot of people, not everybody, because you and I are blessed to be in a social network of people that done a lot of work on themselves. And, they are able to overcome negativity, overcome resistance, overcome the things that are taken away. They are not all, but most of them are very good at it. But it's, like you said in the beginning, it's, you can create new things, but you have to be in that state, that right state of mind. And no matter the COVID year, no matter where your business is, no matter where your relationship is, but when you come from that right state of mind, so the feelings, the emotions, the focus, then it's easier to attract and live in abundance. And abundance means something different for everybody.
Yes. Yes. Imagine some people's definition of abundance is another person's hell. It's like, I wouldn't want to do that. That's not fun at all. And so what you want and what I want and what somebody else wants is so different. And it's all beautiful and okay.
Absolutely.
Yes. That makes it easier. I would love to hear more about your coaching with women and some of the programs you do and the process and more about that.
Yeah. So I have been officially in the business for 25 years. I don't know where the time went, but it's 25 years. And before that, I was doing kind of similar things, but I didn't put it under a name, right? And I have been very blessed to have coached, to have helped like thousands and thousands and thousands of people, either in a group or individual, over the years. So you learn a couple of things, right? When you work with that many people. And how would I say that? Men and women are very different, or I should say feminine energy and masculine energy is very different, right? It doesn't matter where you are, but it matters where you are in your core. And if you think and you make it your reality that you cannot live from your core in business, in life, you make it hard on yourself. So a very common thought or belief is that women in business need to be tough and need to be masculine in order to count.
Mm-hmm.
So because we are so different, and although we've done great work as women, we still came late to the game, right? We came to a man's world. It's been a while, but we still came to a man's world. So you expecting to be a man gives you trouble. But you expecting to be a man gives the men in your environment trouble too, because they don't know how to deal with that. And there's a whole adaptation of how do you do that? I'm a speaker as well. I have to speak differently than a man does. And people are used to a man speaking, and he can have his hands in his pocket and say anything. But as a woman, you have to display more care and more smiling and do it in a different way, in your own way. So I got intrigued by all of that, right? And even in the speaking world where I was speaking, there was still that dichotomy that people said, oh, as a woman on stage, people will not listen to you. Mm-hmm. And, when they have to choose between a woman and a man, they will always choose the man. So there were beliefs and thoughts that I didn't like, and some of that might have been reality, but I never chose to accept that as a reality. So I think it came from there. Now, probably it came from earlier on, way earlier on. I just didn't know how to label it yet. But it's about who you are. Mm-hmm. And it's about your talents and your passion and your interest and your motivation. And ideal would be when we live in a world where everybody can accept each other. It's not the case, right? You are best, but it's not the case. But to know how to deal with situations and not fall into the trap of being somebody different than you really are is an art. And it's not being taught. So that's where I come in, and I've helped many, many women, but also men, understanding the women in their group and business, how to bring out the best in each other and how to be cohesive and be a team and play your strengths. And that is just, I love that. I love that. Because does that make sense?
Yes. So beautiful and important. I was really blessed years ago as this young girl raised by a grandmother, and she had all these other women that were neighbors where I grew up in her home for a little while, and they would have tea. And in this tea, they would tell their stories. It was these stoic women, but they were very in their feminine. It was before things changed. Right. Yet they were new to this world. They may have been the first women to own businesses or take over the husband's business because the husband passed away or whatever it was. And so that's what I grew up with. Those women were my mentors, and that was normal. So a lot of times people would say, well, you're so feminine, Sheila, but how do you run a business? And it's like, that's the way I saw everybody, all the women that I was surrounded with. That's how they ran their business. And they never tried to change to fit into the man's world because they used the femininity to bring that into the business, and they were very successful.
There you go. Well done. Everybody should grow up like that with the male role models and the female role models. That is fantastic. It's beautiful. But a lot of people are confused on how to deal with certain things. At one point, and I have a product coming out on that, but at one point I started collecting pet grievances, right? So your job, what do you run into? What is the thing you dislike? and you got all these different questions. Or my co-workers think I'm a bitch, right? My boss has an old boys network and I'm never included. Right? How can I not appear weak? How do I react when men say, honey, you get the coffee while they have a meeting, right? Stuff like that. And we all know those examples. And I'm not pointing fingers at men, because they need to educate too how to bring that into a team. But I'm educating both how to deal with it. Because for a while, it seems that, my mother's time, it was like my dad had the power, my mom was more submissive. Money was brought in by my dad, mom was doing the household and the kids. So it was very defined, and that definition has gone. So it's kind of equal, but stay in equality is also not very exciting. It can become bland. But to play your own strengths and to see how that fits in a team and how you can benefit from who you are at your core is something that fascinates me. And that's what I do a lot in coaching and mentoring, how to deal with it. Do you take it as an insult that people say, hey, can you get me my coffee? Or do you laugh about it and you say, okay, next time it's your turn.
Right.
Or, hey, I'm busy. I take it with sugar and milk. Thank you. Right? It's you don't have to take it on like it's an insult. It's just what happens. And what's most important is how you react to it.
That is so true. And coming from the speaking world, I did a 1-year speaking tour a while back. And when I did that, it was very different for the men than the women as far as expectations. I mean, you have to have more makeup. You have to have everything perfect. You've got to be this. You've got to be that. Oh my gosh, don't eat too much. You got to be everything had to be a certain way. And the standards for women versus men getting on stage were incredibly different. So it was like 2% of the population of speakers are women because of this craziness. The guy come in, not even do his hair, little belly showing and a t-shirt and be like, hey, I'm here.
And the people go, okay, tell me.
Great. Yeah. But and then a woman, it's like, no, you've got to be dressed perfectly and you could never just come in a t-shirt. And so and I was like, oh, well, it's no wonder. And there's no time. You have to do a lot of self-care to, get everything, the hair done every other day and everything done right. So there was a lot of pressure in that. I found that was like, wow, that's kind of overwhelming. And it's interesting because the judgment not only came from the men in the audience, but it would also come from the women equally or so. And so that's something that has changed somewhat. Now, this was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I did that. And it's changed over time, where people are like, that's refreshing. Thank goodness. Okay, I can breathe too a little bit. And it's more real now.
Yeah.
There's a change in maybe the consciousness of the audience, let's just say, and what's acceptable or what's considered not reasonable.
Yeah, and there's definitely, you said it so right, a change in the rules or the perception of the audience. So women are more supportive, I find. And women really applaud when there's another woman on stage. They go inwards like, yay, we have a woman there, right? But also men, they also change, because if you stay authentically with who you are, how you are at your core, they will love that.
Right.
When I first started, and I never wrote that book because people laughed at me at that time. It was about the subject of flirting. And I say, well, flirting is not only like in an intimate or, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of way, but you flirt with life. And if you look up the definition of flirting, it's banter, right? So when you, and I don't know if it sounds strange, but hear me out. If you, and it's you flirt with your audience, men, women, kids alike, then you bring that playful atmosphere to the stage, which is way more engaging.
Yeah.
So it's like flirt in your life, not necessarily with a sexual connotation, but just bantering and make each other happy. And it's way more fun to go through life like that. But it all has to do how confident you are in your identity, who you are at your core, and how you can deal with people who think otherwise.
Yes. And many times they become your greatest fans later because they're living in this box themselves.
Yeah,
The rule of I need to be this way, and it's a
yeah,
little bit rigid. And then they're like, okay, there's somebody that's free. I want to do that too. How can I just be myself?
exactly, exactly. So, and it's yeah, and I heard not that much anymore, but it can also be a change of environment and social groups. But in the past, I heard a lot, oh, you can do that, but I cannot do that. Right? So it's again, well, who are you and what do you believe in for yourself that plays a big part, you know? And and we can teach that. Everybody who has an open mind, we can teach that. They can bring out that strength and that self-confidence in everyone. Now, it's funny how people have rules, right? I remember when I was doing was 5 days, I think, or 5.5 days. And I was doing that in America. So I'm not only a woman, I also have an accent, right? I'm from the Netherlands. So after the seminar went really, really great, this guy came up to me really, really enthusiastically. And he said, I could understand everything you said. So it was the connotation of she has an accent, I can't understand her, right? So it's people have rules around things, thoughts around things, beliefs around things. They're their own truths. But it's sometimes, or most of the times, it's really good to shake your own truth, right? And to see, did I make it up? Is that where my focus is? Or is that really, really true? So that is a fun thing to go through with people as well.
Yes. Now, can you give an example maybe of some of the people that maybe you've worked with, how after working with you, they've been able to embrace their masculine or feminine or whoever they truly are, their authenticity?
Yeah, it's there's two, right? It's in business, and maybe I'd like to call it more living from your core, whether that's feminine or masculine, because I worked with a lot of women and a few men in understanding what the difference is. So I worked with a girl and she had a great position, but she felt she was on the board and she had a really, really great position, but she always was defensive. It's kind of she had to defend herself for who she was and the position she got, instead of embracing it and saying, well, this is how I am and this is my value. So instead of being more, how, I don't like that word submissive, and I don't know another word for it. But instead of being more, yes, yes, I can do that. Yes, yes, okay. Whenever something came up, to say, well, I can do this and I cannot do that. I'm filled up, and then you need to have it done right now. Somebody else needs to take over, or I have some time in 2 weeks. It sounds like a little bit, and you all know that most men, not all, but most men don't have any challenges with that. For her, that was a big challenge. So she took on everything, and when you take on everything, you train people to give everything to you, and your own plate becomes so full that you cannot do anything to the extent that you need to have it done. Yeah. So that is one of the examples, and she was very successful. But she had still that mindset of, I cannot stand up for myself. I cannot have clear boundaries. I have to just take everything on that is given. So that is and since then she wrote a book and about businesswoman, and she discovered who she really is and what she can and cannot do, and how she needs to react or communicate in a way that serves her as well. That is one example for business, and another example is in relationship. Whether you're in a same gender relationship or not, it doesn't really matter what kind of a relationship it is. But to live in that relationship as who you are and in your core and how that influences your partner is something I love doing. But because we have certain traits that female energy wants to see that in their partner, masculine energy wants to see that in their partner, and not everybody is pure feminine energy or masculine energy. You have the whole range in between, right? So knowing yourself and knowing your partner and learning how to live in your own energy and allow your partner to live in their energy, and to make sure that conflict is outside of your relationship. That sounds weird, but it's when you focus on having love in your relationship, and there will be always disagreements and whatnot, but to address that outside of your relationship is a relief for a lot of people. You can say, I love you, and let's talk about XYZ, let's have lunch, let's have a discussion about that. So that is, I like when people get to know themselves, really, their strengths, their weaknesses, their skills, their talents, their emotional stability, and really are able to live on their own terms. While, if that's your choice, and it certainly is mine, taking care of your partner's needs as well.
Yes. So important. And boundaries. You mentioned boundaries in the first example. And I think that boundaries, even in a relationship, are so important. And sometimes, what advice do you have maybe for someone dating to set boundaries on even moving forward with one relationship or another or not, because it's not a fit?
Right. A lot of people, men and women, I would say, not only women, they want the relationship, or they want to be in a relationship, and that's the ultimate goal. And not many people go, I want to be happy in a relationship. I want to have a meaningful relationship. So there's a slight difference, right? Because if your end goal is to be in a relationship, you might end up with somebody that's not a fit. Now, my belief is as well that if you both have an open mind and you're both committed, you can do a lot. Right? And you might come to the conclusion that it's still not a fit, or it's a best friend for life. That's fine. But you have to go on a discovery process. Why it's not a fit? Why did I attract that person in my life? And, touching on, there's toxic relationships, right? There's relationships that are really not okay. But if you or your partner are not able to communicate your boundaries, you have to look inside and go, what's going on? And often it's a fear of abandonment, a fear of being alone. And like, I know what I have. I don't know what I will be getting. So I'll just stay here and be miserable, and over time make each other miserable. So it takes a certain amount of self-discovery and courage to go like, is this really working? Is this really what I want? And if it's not what you want, then can I make this happen with my current partner? Or can we work it out together till we see where we really are? So I would say it takes courage and self-discovery.
Yes. And I think it's one of the most important decisions to make, either getting into a relationship, staying in a relationship, or not. These decisions are life-changing. And
they are.
It goes to like Napoleon Hill talking about relationships and how that can affect your business, your family life, your finances, every part of your life. You could be a billionaire, and if you have a relationship situation going on, you can lose all that in a second. So it's really important to look for what's a good fit and be aligned and have those conversations beforehand. Or if you're in a relationship and you get into a stuck place, where you can go in and work with somebody to guide you through rediscovering that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think our, conditioning from centuries and centuries is kicking in, right? Because at our cave days, you had to have a relationship. Men hunting, women cooking, and kids, right? It was a perfect symbiosis. Well, over time, we don't need a man or a partner, and vice versa. Men don't need a woman or a partner. We can all do it by ourselves, and people who make that choice, that's okay too. I come from a very open-minded country. Not everybody is open-minded, but globally around relationships, we have everything. We have the traditional marriage. We have the living together, even with kids and not being married. We have like two people have a big house. We have his and hers, right? We have people living apart together. They're in a really committed relationship, but they each have their own space. So it's, I often tell my clients, your relationship is what you make of it. Because often they have a role model and they want to have their relationship. Yeah. Well, two things: you cannot look behind doors, and also what works for them most certainly wouldn't work for you. So when you are in a relationship, or when you want a relationship, create the one that is good for you and your partner.
Wow, that is so important. That's incredibly important to know, because there's something that happens. Some people, they could be dating and it is heaven. They are in the best place. They could be dating for 5 years and they are so happy, but their mindset on what marriage looks like and family life is so different than dating that that's an important conversation to have, or even if you're already in the relationship, to have that discussion, because the vision of my parents, this is what their marriage looked like, and that's what I want. And so quit your job and stay home and we're going to have 12 kids. It's like, excuse me. And so those discussions are so important. And it's almost like we tend to replay what we learned growing up. And so to realize, well, we don't have to have that traditional relationship or that traditional way of doing things, and what both parties want.
Exactly.
That's a difference. Big.
It's just what I see in still, and there's a big difference in America and in the Netherlands. In America, they were more marriage focused, right? And marriage focused at a young age. My sons are 30 and 33, and that's about the age where in the Netherlands they think about forming a family or getting married. So there's a very different flavor. And their neighbor country, Germany, they marry in their 20s, right? In the begin 20s. So it's also what you culturally are exposed to. But if you look at the psychology, you either recreate what your parents have or the people you spend most time with, or you do the complete opposite. And neither is your own choice. So what do you want to create? I mean, nowadays we can create whatever you want within reason, with legality and stuff like that. But you can create your own relationship that works for you and your partner. And nobody else is important in that.
Yes, that is so good. And how do you think people can best apply, like, let's say they go to your coaching or another program, how can they actually take that work and apply it? That's something that's so important, the application process.
Absolutely, because the ahas, the awareness, sure, you need to have that. But then the real, the reality actually is kicking in, right? Because you have your aha, now what? Because there's a lot of people that I know of that go to seminar after seminar after seminar. They love it. They get their ahas, but they don't change anything in their world. So it's good when you sell seminars, right? It's nice clients to have, but if you look at improving lives, then something needs to shift. So there's a couple of things I think of. You mentioned coaching. So you need to have somebody by your side, coaching, mentoring, role modeling. Coaching is a little bit better, I think, because you have a stake in the game. You usually pay for coaching. So, and when you pay for something, you're more inclined to do the work. So have somebody that helps you implement it. If you're really, really diligent, it only takes a month to change things and to implement different things. It's a process, because at the seminar you have maybe 20, 25, 50 different things that you go, oh yes,
Right.
Pick 3 to start with. When they're there, pick another 3, right? Make it your priorities. But it's also, I think that if you know that your life is being lived 95% from your subconscious and only 5% from your conscious, from your mind. So, and if you know that, because we think our mind is like involved in everything, right? There's more subconscious than you would ever realize. So we react to the outside world. We react to what we call triggers. If you, in advertisement marketing, they use that all the time. Certain song, all of a sudden you buy a Danish or something like that, right? Certain smell, you go to Cinnabon, you like it. So it's all in having those triggers make you do something, and there's no choice in between. So when you're at a seminar, when you're in a new environment, you learn new things, and then you come back to your house or your family, your friends, where everything is still as it was before. So the triggers are still in place. So you might be able to resist that for a month, 6 weeks, but if you don't do anything with it, you slowly go back to the way it was before. So it's implementing step by step. Somebody who's holding your hand, keep you accountable, is a really good way of breaking through and see what your triggers are and why you react to it. You know, whatever is in your subconscious mind, you can bring it to the conscious, to the awareness, and then you can decide whether you want to keep it or not. But if you do not do that and you don't investigate what's going on there, there's the good, the bad, the ugly, everything is in there. It's old stuff, and you don't want to react like you reacted when you were 4 years old or 7 years old, right? Or 14 or 15 or whatever. So it's like knowing what's going on, knowing what your automatic reaction is, and see if that is serving you. So living in awareness is something that's, and we all heard that, right? But we're so busy, that really living in awareness comes last. Let me just go through the day. Let me just deal with the kids. Let me just deal with the business. Let me just, even work out, kids, work out, business, you just skip that step, taking a deep breath and go like, what's really going on? Why am I reacting the way I'm reacting?
Yes. Now, the other question, when people are doing this work, a lot of times people are trying to change. Maybe they have an addiction or they're getting out of an abusive situation, and they have family and friends that are supporting them or trying to support them. What advice do you have for those people that are supporting a loved one who's working really hard to make a change and apply what they've learned?
I think when it comes to family members or great friends, it's just love them. Love them through it. Keep on seeing who they really are. You love the person that they are. You might not condone their behavior, but keep on loving the person that they are inside. And maybe together, if they're open for it, decide what the best approach is by a professional.
Yeah.
And I think love and support is so important. And a lot of people do not know that. They think that they don't do nothing. But it's the most important you can do.
Yes. And catching them doing right or having the big wins, which sometimes are the little wins. Sometimes, if they're going through something, it might be, you got out of bed today. That's a big win. Whatever it is. Celebrating the big wins and having that loving patience with loved one when they run into that. Anyone you work with, when you coach, they're going to have those times where they go back to the pattern and then awareness kicks in later.
Yeah.
And that's still a win. because the
Yeah.
awareness kicked in. It's just,
Sure.
it's going to take a
Step.
little time. It's
Yeah.
a little step. And instead of beating yourself up, if you're the one doing the process, or beating the loved one up, to catch the good parts, I
Yeah.
think that really makes a difference in getting to the other
Yeah.
side of it, and knowing triggers are gonna show up, and then it might be that it's less of a trigger, or you're aware and you can do something different.
Exactly.
Yes.
And of course, it's sometimes not easy when people are seriously addicted.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have professional help, and you need to really be careful who you hire, right? And where you send your people, but also to realize that you might not be the person to give them that help.
Yeah.
Because often that help is based on tough love.
Mm-hmm.
And when you love somebody, it's hard to do the tough love, right? In many ways we can, but in huge ways we cannot. So it's accepting that your job is just to love them for who they are. It makes it easier to say, well, this is beyond my scope. I need professional help.
I think that's the beauty. I point this out to a lot of people, where it's like, you think of a pastor, a priest, a rabbi, someone that's guiding someone, and they have a community of hundreds of people, and they always give advice and help people, but many times they have to refer out to a specialist for certain things.
Yeah.
And that is to know when you can support someone as much as you can, and when you need to refer out. And that's just so much easier to know you're doing your best.
Yeah.
And to get your own coach or help to help you in the ways that you can help work on you, and supporting whoever that loved one is in your life that you want to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you go to bed at night and you say, I've done the best I could with everything I know, with everything I learned, then that's a good day. But be realistic, because addiction, you cannot solve the problem for them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason they're addicted. I call it escapism. There's a reason for it. And, they need to go deep inside when they want to find it, and then have a more healthy coping mechanism with whatever is going on. And it's a tough subject.
It is.
It's a tough subject, but also, and that sounds, well, I say a lot of things that sound maybe strange, but it's not let your guilt become your crutch.
Mm-hmm.
It's people feel, I met somebody and his son died of an overdose, and that was 7 years ago. And I'm not saying that after 7 years it's any easier, but what was really horrible for him, that he was holding on to that image that he could have saved his son. And I think as a parent, and you must know that, right? As a parent, that's kind of your job, right? To protect your kids and to make sure they have the best life possible. But it's, if you can honestly say to yourself, I've done everything I could.
Mm-hmm.
There is a bigger something out there, however name you give it, that is sometimes has a different outcome for things, and the outcome we do not like.
Right.
But, we are not playing God or playing the almighty universe or Buddha or whatnot, right? It's, you need to do your utmost, your best that you can possibly do. Love at your best. And when that's not enough, seek professional help. And when that's not enough, then there's a whole other spiritual discussion. Right. And I just want to mention one book that really, really helped me, and that is Sacred Souls. So it's under the header of that souls, are somewhere. And then when a kid or a child gets born, there is a contract attached to it. So the contract comes and says that this kid is going to be a child of divorced parents, and and there's abandonment issues and blah blah blah, right? And then one of the souls go, okay, I can handle that. And
Wow.
that might be for a long time, that might be for a short time, and that's kind of the law of the universe. And we human beings cannot really influence that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's in a way how I started making sense of what happened to my baby girl.
Yeah.
You know, there is a reason, there's a bigger reason. I might not know it, I might never know it, but there must be a bigger reason.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And a connection that continues. Like you said, your daughter's with you, my son's with me. That connection we feel,
Yeah.
signs that show up. And
Yeah.
scientifically, when you look at anyone that's crossing over, they're already talking to people on the other side before they leave their body.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Any country on the planet, they have the same experience. There's a connection between science and spirituality that we're just now figuring out.
Yeah.
And that's to surrender. Sometimes we have to surrender to what is and do our best, and then be guided and listen to what our next action is. And
Yeah.
sometimes those baby steps that get us out and on
Yeah.
track.
Yeah, I agree. And by no means, I mean, well, something bad happens and you go, oh, well, and then move on. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, I think, love people, period. Even when they go through really bad times, just love them. And seek guidance, seek counseling, seek professionals in however way you can. It doesn't always work either.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to do your best and know you've done your best and your utmost. I think that's all we can do as human beings.
Yes. Now, I would love for you to share, if someone was to come to you to start on one of these journeys with you for getting into the masculine and feminine and really finding their authentic truth, what do they need to do? How do they connect with you? What does the process look like?
Right. So connect with me through social media or through my website or through my phone number. I don't know if you have that available somewhere. And otherwise, I hope you publish it. And just then we will have a conversation about what you need and if we are a good match.
Okay.
So it's, and I have, again, a program coming out about feminine business leaders. So maybe that's a good fit. Maybe private coaching is a good fit. Maybe, you know, group coaching or seminar is a good fit. But let me help you. If you need help, let me help you. I've learned so much. I've studied so much, and I have certificates up to the wazoo because I always want to grow and learn new things, that there's always a way to help you. And that is what I do. I love helping people and love to get them to an authentic, happy, and fulfilled place.
Beautiful. And now, do you have a website for people to connect?
Yeah. My website is Dr. Connie, Dr. Connie, so DRCONNIE, online, all one word, .com.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing and being a guest on the show. So I look forward to seeing you in person at live events again soon. And
Yeah.
yes, that'll be wonderful. And again, so that's drconnie.com, correct?
DrConnieOnline.com.
Yes. Online.com.
DrConnieOnline.com. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. All right. And for those tuning in, we'll be back. So thank you again for being a guest on the show, Connie.
You're welcome. Speak to you later. Bye.
All right. And for those just tuning in, this is the Sheila Mack Show on NBC's KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. And I wanted to share something really special that I am actually getting for my new home, and that is a Dream Pod. It is a special flotation home pro product, and this is a salt flotation device. Now, I've actually started to go to float centers in California, and They are now around the world, where you can go to a float center and float with tons of salt in the water, and it's a sensory deprivation experience where you are able to really just fully relax. I've had the most creative insights show up for me during this time of deep meditation. They also have music that is a meditative music that you're able to listen to while you're in this float bath. And now they have products where you can have a Dream Pro Home Edition, where you can soak at home and do your daily float, or you can also get one for your business. They also have a mineral soaker out now. And for those of you that love the ice baths, there is actually now a Dream Pod ice bath that you can bring to your home. It is a home edition, home-sized product. And so I'm actually going to start with the float and move into getting the ice bath as well. And if you'd like to learn more about it, you can visit. I have a special link for those interested. Go to www.dream-pod.com/partner = Sheila Mack. And they have some incredible specials. They are delivering all over the United States. And I would love to hear about your experience. So again, go to www.dream-pod.com/partner = Sheila Mack and look into getting your own float device or ice bath or mineral soaker at home, or for your business, a Home Pro Deluxe float device. All right, and stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment. So here it is, my latest book. I have to let you know something, just between you and me. This book is not one size fits all, just like a pair of boots or a bra. So the formula is designed to help you through any situation. To grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available on Audible, as well as on Amazon and Kindle, and at www.sheilamac.com.